They told us the war was over. That phrase, "it's finally done," rang hollow in my ears the day the Treaty of Caron was signed. I remember the way the screens lit up across every human station, colony, and outpost. Celebration. Relief. Tears. But I didn't celebrate. I couldn't. Not because I didn't want peace, but because I knew better. The kind of peace they spoke of didn't exist anymore. Not for us. We weren't built to be the same species after what we'd done. Let me start from where it truly ends, or begins, depending on how you look at it. My name is Commander Elias Rourke, former strategist of the 5th Interstellar Terran Offensive. And this is what happened after we supposedly won. We'd spent 17 years fighting the Fokker Dominion. 17 years. Whole planets turned to ash. Moons cracked. Stars bled light into dying systems. And when the Council of 12 declared a ceasefire, we didn't feel victory. We felt the weight of all the silence left behind. I was stationed aboard the TSV Halcyon Requiem, a retrofitted warship turned supply monitor, floating idle above the ruins of Teleris 6. A ceremonial post, they said, a thank you for your service. Now go rot quietly kind of assignment. Teleris 6 had been the site of our final offensive. We dropped antimatter payloads like they were candy. The crust still smoked when I arrived. You could see the planet's mantle pulsing, like a wound trying to heal. But no life had healed here. Not a single signal. Not even Fokker Tech salvage crews. They were as done with us as we were with them. Or so I thought. Commander Rourke. Came a crackle from the comms. Lieutenant Anya Vale, my second-in-command, one of the few soldiers who'd stuck with me after the demobilization. We've got something. I sat up from the steel bench in the observation bay. My fingers tightened around a cup of lukewarm nutrient slurry I'd been pretending to enjoy. Go on, I said, heart-skipping. Unregistered beacon. Frequency's not Fokker, but it's old, really old, originating from the surface. Human? There was a pause. That's the thing. It's broadcasting in Terran military code. Pre-unification dialect. That meant pre-Earth coalition. Pre-2071. That code hadn't been used since before the planet-wide merge of Earth's nations, which begged a far more disturbing question. What the hell was a pre-unification signal doing on Teleris 6? We touched down in the middle of what looked like nothing more than fused black glass. The heat from the last bombardment still hung in the air. My boots sank into the ash ankle deep. We were supposed to be alone. But the beacon wasn't lying. It was embedded inside a twisted husk of metal that impossibly bore markings from the United Earth Defense Grid, an institution that hadn't existed in over 300 years. We pried open the remains. Inside was a corpse. Human, frozen in some kind of cryostasis breach, partially incinerated but undeniably ancient. His face was still visible, tattoos etched in old Terran War ink. His armor bore a sigil I hadn't seen since the War Museum on Mars. Project Revenant. I looked at Anya. She looked at me. No record of Revenant ever being deployed here, she whispered. They were shut down before we reached interstellar capability. I know, but this guy's been here centuries. I nodded slowly, mind racing. Centuries before the war. And somehow still here after. The implications coiled around my spine like cold wire. Humanity hadn't just survived. We'd been places long before the galaxy ever noticed. And someone had gone to great lengths to bury that history. Back aboard the Halcyon, I began scrubbing deeper into the ancient code from the beacon, layer by layer, unlocking files that shouldn't have survived nuclear hellfire. Inside were mission logs. And one message, repeating in a loop, if you're seeing this, it means we failed. Not the mission. Humanity. We went too far. We changed, became something else. Not better. Not worse. Just inevitable. Tell Earth nothing. If they remember what we did, they'll do it again. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat, because what scared me most wasn't the message. It was the fact that I agreed. Peace? The galaxy thought it had stopped the war. But the war wasn't just about ships and soldiers. It was about what humanity became when survival demanded more than ethics or memory. And now that we weren't dying anymore, we were remembering. It's funny what gets erased. You can burn cities, starve worlds, vaporize databanks, but the most permanent deletion is silence. Not violence, not censorship, just quiet. After recovering that ancient corpse from Tellera 6, I spent 3 days locked in Halcyon's lower archives, tracing military signal origins, AI classified files, and black site mission logs. The deeper I dug, the colder it got. Not physically, but that kind of moral cold you only feel when staring at something you were never meant to know. Project Revenant. A name so thoroughly purged that even Earth Central AI servers had only ghost entries. No personnel lists. No locations. Just one phrase burned into a forgotten terminal cache. Revenant assets are not to be reabsorbed under post-war protocols. Not debriefed. Not celebrated. Just abandoned. I didn't know what they were, but I knew they were human, and that scared me more than any alien enemy I'd ever faced. We left orbit without clearance, a felony in peacetime, but I had Anya reroute our system pings and scramble our flight signature to mimic a salvage hauler. Our destination, Gaia Ascendant, Earth's orbital seat of power, a half-ring of polished white alloy and gold alloys wrapped like a crown around the blue planet, the cradle of humanity, and the grave of its memory. Security won't let us dock. Anya warned as we approached the perimeter. We're flagged as rogue military assets. I stared out the viewport at Earth's serene curve. The ocean shimmered like nothing had ever gone wrong. You would know that less than a century ago, we'd almost nuked ourselves into extinction before unifying. They'll let us in, I murmured, because we're not here to ask. We breached the defense grid using an override code I shouldn't have remembered. Something from my time in Shadow Ops, back when I was still a clean name on a dirty list. The station AI protested, but I hardwired the docking clamps before anyone could say otherwise. We boarded the ring with weapons holstered but visible. Let the suits feel uncomfortable. Let them remember what humanity looks like when it's not smiling. I requested a direct audience with Director Elon Serix, head of the Terran Memory Bureau. They denied it, so we walked into her office anyway. Elon Serix hadn't aged a day, probably vat-grown rejuvenation every decade. Her silver blonde hair was folded back in ceremonial rings. Skin flawless. Eyes cold. She didn't stand when we entered. Didn't blink either. Just said, "You are a war criminal, Commander Rourke." I smiled. Only if peace lasts. She didn't find it funny. "What do you want?" I placed a cryo core from Tellera 6 on her desk, the Revenant's beacon still pulsing weakly in its cracked metal casing. She froze. "You knew," I said quietly. "You knew they were out there. Before the war. Before the Fokker." She looked at the beacon like it was a curse. "I warned them to leave the grave sealed," she said finally. I leaned forward. What was Revenant? There was a long pause, then a whisper. A mirror. She deactivated the security recorders. That alone told me she was about to speak treason. Revenant was the first attempt to make humanity ready for interstellar survival. Before peace. Before laws. We created them from our worst instincts, fearless, amoral, evolution's blunt instruments. Not machines. Not clones. Just modified people, selected from the worst battlefields Earth had ever known. She tapped the beacon. "That man down there? He was built to do what you did in the war 300 years ago, and he was better at it." I felt a chill crawl up my neck. Why bury them? Because they didn't stop. I blinked. "What do you mean?" Even after their wars ended, even after their missions concluded, they kept fighting. Searching for new conflicts to insert themselves into. They believed humanity's survival depended on never being caught off guard again. So they embedded themselves in the future. They left messages, weapons, sleeper labs. One Revenant cell even seeded false evidence to start our first off-world war with the Fokker. The silence pressed heavy. "They started the war?" She nodded. "Not all of them, but enough." I stood, barely keeping my balance. Why am I just hearing this now? "Because you're like them," she said. "You survived war. And now you're looking for something else to survive. Anya stepped forward. If they're still out there, shouldn't we stop them? No, Sarek said softly. You don't stop them. You survive them. Back aboard the Halcyon, I watched the beacon one last time. The message had changed. A new file had decrypted during our time on Earth. One phrase blinked across the screen. Phase 2 initiated. Humanity must evolve again. The timestamp? 6 hours ago. Not from tStop 6. From Mars. Mars was supposed to be a miracle, a testament to humanity's triumph over nature, transformed from red wasteland to emerald jewel in less than 50 years. Every child in the Terran Alliance memorized the slogans. We made a desert bloom. We made war obsolete. We made peace profitable. But peace, I'd come to learn, was a story, and stories could be rewritten. The Halcyon Requiem dropped into orbit under a civilian transponder. Anya had reprogrammed our signature to mimic a Martian trade envoy, complete with false docking codes, cargo manifests, and forged diplomatic orders. We weren't sneaking in. We were ghosting in. We landed at the Solaris Arcology, the pride of New Mars. Towers like crystal spears pierced the salmon skies, draped in vertical forests and solar glass wings that caught the twin moon's light. Peacekeepers in white and blue armor patrolled the platforms, smiling like predators in uniform. It was beautiful, and underneath it, something was waking up. The new file decrypted from the Revenant beacon had led us to Site A, Theta 7, a geological anomaly buried 1.4 kilometers beneath the Arcology's bedrock, marked as inaccessible due to tectonic instability. But the beacon knew otherwise. It had coordinates, passcodes, access protocols encoded in archaic Terran dialects that hadn't been spoken since Earth still had ice caps. I had Anya patch into the Undercity tram system. We were going digging. 2 hours later, we were standing in a maintenance shaft carved into the planet's bones, where the polished glass of the Arcology gave way to ancient steel bulkheads and scorched concrete walls. The air changed down here, heavier, like it remembered screams. What is this place? Anya asked, sweeping her light over the rusted signage. I traced my fingers across a faded emblem burned into the wall. Revenant Initiative, Facility 9. No record of this place existed on any Martian registry. It was older than the terraform, older than the Arcology, maybe even older than the war. We pushed through 3 sealed blast doors, each one requiring biometric keys from the cryo beacon, each one granting us access to something we weren't supposed to see. And then we found them. Cryopods. Hundreds of them. Row after row in a colossal subterranean vault, humming with low power. Not just one man like tStop 6, but an entire battalion. All still alive. All still waiting. Their faces were locked in time. Some were scarred, others tattooed with Earth's long-dead military insignia. Some wore armor I didn't even recognize, like it had been prototyped and never released. They're still human, Anya whispered. No, I said, they're what comes after human. I approached the central console, its interface blinking weakly, damaged from time and seismic shifts. With effort, I forced the system's boot. A voice crackled through ancient speakers. Calm, masculine, recorded. To any surviving Earthborn, if you're hearing this, then the world is no longer safe. It never was. We left you gifts, tools, warnings. We fought wars you never saw, against things you never named. We died before you ever lived. You called it peace. We called it intermission. Then a final line. The signal you found wasn't a mistake. It was an alarm. Phase 2 has begun. The Revenant Protocol is active. Earth is vulnerable. And we are waking up. Alarm screamed. Red lights bathed the cryopod chamber in artificial blood. I spun to Anya. She was already checking her rifle. Someone's coming, she said. No. I replied, heart pounding. Something's waking up. 6 pods hissed. Their chambers depressurized, and the liquid cryo coating hissed into vapor. The first figure stepped out, slowly, like he'd done it 1,000 times before. He didn't collapse. He didn't blink. He looked right at me, and saluted. Commander Rourke, He said in perfect Terran standard, "I've been waiting a long time." The others emerged behind him. Revenants, pale skin, eyes like wet obsidian, movements precise, efficient, too smooth to be natural, too real to be artificial. "You know who I am?" I asked, my hand slowly reaching for the pistol at my thigh. "Yes," he said, "because we left instructions to follow your lead." "Why?" "Because you survived the Fokker. You understand what's coming." I narrowed my eyes. "Coming from where?" He stepped closer. "Not from space." The floor shook. Deep, bone-vibrating tremors, like something massive was moving far beneath the vault. Dust rained down from the ceiling as systems whined to life. The Revenant extended a device toward me, a metal cube etched in sigils older than any human language. "We fought them in the dark," he said. "Buried them beneath your cities. We told the early colonies to forget. You kept building." "Building on what?" His eyes locked to mine. No emotion, no fear. "Tombs." We barely escaped the vault. The quake collapsed part of the corridor behind us. Anya pulled me through a maintenance crawl space just before the floor gave way. By the time we reached the surface, the arcology security net had gone red. Someone knew we'd been there. But worse, something else did too. Back on the Halcyon, I stared at the cube. It was humming now, pulsing like a heart. And somehow I knew, whatever the war was before, this was going to be worse. Because the Revenants hadn't been humanity's mistake. They were our insurance policy. And insurance only activates when the house is already burning. I used to believe war was the worst thing we'd ever endured. Now, I believe war was the only thing keeping them asleep. After escaping the Mars vault, we set a burn vector for Earth low profile. No communications. No signatures. The Halcyon Requiem was dark as the void itself. I watched the blue-green planet grow on our approach, serene, beautiful, oblivious. But beneath the oceans and forests, under the megacities and arcologies, something ancient was stirring, and the Revenants had already begun to move. The cube never stopped humming. I kept it sealed in the Requiem's artifact locker, but the thing pulsed through bulkheads and shielding. Not a sound, not a vibration. A presence, like a heartbeat inside my skull. Anya stopped sleeping. She started muttering fragments of old Earth nursery rhymes, one she never learned. I caught myself doing the same. The Revenant we'd brought aboard, codenamed Rourke, didn't sleep either. He just stood, eyes shut, for hours. When I asked what he was doing, he simply said, listening for their breath. We broke Earth orbit over the Pacific, disguising our descent with a meteor shield signature. Landed deep in the outlands, beneath the overgrowth of what used to be northern Australia, now a regulated nature reclamation zone, protected by planetary law. That's what the surface claimed. But Rourke had coordinates, and those coordinates pointed us to Dome Zero, a derelict subterranean launch silo that predated the Terran unification wars. No one had used it in over 250 years, or so the records claimed. We hiked 10 kilometers through brush and biome-fabricated trees until we reached it. It wasn't abandoned. The steel entrance was coated in camouflage moss, perfectly preserved. A retinal scanner long powered down flickered to life the moment Rourke stepped forward. He said nothing as it scanned his eye, and then the ground shook. The earth split open, revealing a rusted freight elevator descending into the dark. A symbol lay etched into the center plate. Revenant Sanctum, Core Memory Vault. We rode in silence. Anya stood beside me, jaw tight. She clutched her rifle like a life raft. Rourke stared ahead. And me? I was starting to remember things I never lived. The vault stretched endlessly downward, a cylindrical cathedral of cables, server towers, and glowing pillars. Echoes of whispered voices drifted through the air, fragments of archived memories stored in quantum-bonded echoes. Rourke guided us to a central terminal, where the cubes pulsing aligned with an old docking chamber. It clicked into place. An entire sanctum awoke. Data poured across the walls. Images, projections, maps. Wars never recorded. Colonies never reported. Creatures that weren't alien. Not truly. They were pre-human. The Pale Deep. The Black Choir. the drowned one beneath Europa. Each name linked to seismic anomalies, unexplained colony disappearances, or ancient Terran legends. They came before us, Rourke said quietly. Or maybe they were always here, waiting. I felt the weight of it all like a mountain pressing into my chest. You fought them? He nodded. Sealed them. Starved them. Lied about them. The wars you fought? Distractions. They kept humanity angry, focused outward. As long as we raged across the stars, we didn't listen to the quiet places. Anya whispered, and now there's peace. They're whispering back. I finished. The Sanctum's memory archive showed it all. The Revenants hadn't just been super soldiers. They were custodians, programmed not just with combat algorithms, but ancient rites, blood-coded locks, names you couldn't say without bleeding from your ears. And they had failed once before. Site Eden 1, subterranean Earth, present-day New Eden City, buried beneath the largest city on the planet, was the Choir's prison. The memory projection showed cracks forming in its seal, vibrational patterns, pulse spikes, a heartbeat. Anya whispered, "How long?" Rourke's voice was like frost. "It's already waking." We returned topside, and that's when it hit. A tremor rolled across the reclaimed forest, knocking trees askew. Birds took flight. The sky screamed, a resonance I felt in my teeth, like an ancient dial being tuned. Earth's satellites dropped offline. Requiem's orbiting AI went dead. And deep in the soil, something began to sing. Rourke didn't hesitate. He drew a blade, not forged, not printed. It looked grown, black and pulsing with veins. "We must reseal it," he said. I looked to Anya. "We don't know what it is yet." Rourke turned to me slowly. "Then you'll die not knowing." Back on the Halcyon, we went dark again and launched. Destination, New Eden. The last memory file we extracted from the Sanctum was a failsafe. Coordinates of hidden Revenant caches scattered across the Earth. Weapons. Protocol overrides. One phrase burned across the last line of code before the terminal failed. The war ended. Humanity didn't. They thought peace was our greatest victory. But peace was the lie that let them rise again. And now Earth wasn't a cradle anymore. It was a door. And someone or something was finally turning the handle. New Eden was Earth's crown jewel. A city of spires and sky bridges, glass domes stretching from ocean edge to mountain root. 20 billion lived inside its safety. Commerce, art, diplomacy. This was humanity's soul, if such a thing could still be said to exist. And beneath it, a wound. We broke orbit under full stealth. The Halcyon Requiem ghosted past orbital control as every planetary satellite remained dark. Earth's defense grid had gone silent since the tremor over Australia, an anomaly, they said, being investigated. Lies, because the cracks weren't just in the ground anymore. They were in the airwaves. Anya piloted us into the underbay, the ancient, rarely used maintenance tunnels that spiderweb beneath the megacity, meant for old-world cooling lines, magma channels, and structural regulators. Now, they were bleeding strange energy. As we descended, we passed a sector of broken lights and pulsing radiation. Machinery was melted, not exploded, just erased, like the molecules no longer agreed to hold together. "It's spreading," Anya whispered. Rourke nodded. "It always starts this way. Patterns unravel. Then minds. What happens when it reaches the surface?" I asked. His answer was instant. No one survives. We reached the terminal platform. 10 levels below even the oldest schematics. The cube, still embedded in my satchel, vibrated with increasing urgency, guiding us. This deep, there was no sound of civilization, only dripping condensation, the hiss of pressurized steam, and a low thrum, a rhythm, a heartbeat. That wasn't ours. We passed through a corridor where the walls were wrong. Still steel, still structure, but warped, as if something beneath had started pushing out, a bulge in the floor. Hairline cracks on the ceiling. The cube's glow intensified, and then we saw the door. Black stone, out of place, ancient, not metal, not earth-made. Carved into its center was a sigil, a spiraling eye of jagged crescents. Blood seeped from its seams, not liquid blood, but light, red and pulsing. Rourke knelt before it. The choir's seal. He unsheathed the blade again, its edge singing in resonance with the door. "Wait," I said. "We open that." What if it's already too late? Rourke looked up at me. "Then this is our last hymn." He placed the blade into the center of the sigil. The stone didn't slide open. It peeled, unraveled like wet bark, layers folding backward into themselves, revealing a corridor of obsidian and light. The smell hit us instantly. Rot, ozone, and something like singed time. We entered. Every step forward was like walking deeper into a nightmare someone else had tried to forget. The chamber opened into a vast chasm, a cathedral underground. Tall pillars reached into nothing. Between them floated moats, crystalline shards of memory. Anya brushed one with her glove hand. It screamed, not audio, something deeper. Visions slammed into our minds. Children screaming as their reflections moved without them. Soldiers vomiting up insects made of data. Cities built on top of writhing things that pretended to be stone. Anya fell to her knees. "They were always here," she whispered, shaking. "We built on them. They let us." I helped her up. "Why?" Rourke was already walking to the center platform. "Because they learned. They watched us grow, waited for peace, waited until we stopped looking beneath. And now," Rourke turned, eyes glowing faintly. "Now they're ready to sing again." From the darkness rose a figure. Not fast, not sudden, just inevitable, like gravity. It looked human at first, tall, elegant, skin like silver wet with blood, a mouth that didn't open, and eyes that never closed. Its voice came through the cube, not its mouth. "We remember you. You sang War into the Void. Now you have fallen silent. Shall we sing in your place?" I raised my rifle. "You want to wipe us out?" "No. We want to join you." Suddenly I understood. This was an invasion. It was assimilation. The choir didn't destroy civilizations. They became them, rooted themselves into the fabric of thought, memory, and language. They sang into your history until you forgot your own. Your guardians failed. Your walls are dust. And still you come to kneel? Rourke stepped forward. "Not to kneel," he said. "To finish what we started." He raised a blade, and the creature screamed. Light exploded. The chamber trembled. The choir began to manifest. Dozens of shapes rising from the walls, the floor, the memories. We fought, not with bullets, with will, with our identities. The choir tried to sing over us, but we screamed louder. I remembered every name I ever saw on a war memorial, every face, every scream. I shouted Earth's old war cries, not to summon violence, but to anchor truth. Anya activated a detonation device, one from the old Revenant vaults. A last resort. We had minutes. Rourke looked at me, face calm. "Commander, I'll hold them." I grabbed his shoulder. "That's not the plan." "It is now." He smiled. The first time I'd seen him do that. "You made it this far. Finish it." Anya and I ran. We reached the lift, rose through layers of blackness and stone as the voices rose behind us. The choir screamed. Then, light. The Halcyon Requiem pulled us aboard just as the detonation tore through the old world. And deep beneath the jewel of Earth, the choir went silent. The detonation sealed the chamber beneath New Eden. Or so we thought. The explosion had no visible crater, no official casualties. The surface city never felt the blast. But we knew something had changed. The moment the payload went off, a pressure lifted. Like a sound we hadn't noticed was suddenly gone. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. But Earth didn't celebrate, because Earth didn't even know. We returned to orbit in silence. The Halcyon Requiem ran diagnostics as I sat in the observation deck, watching clouds swirl over the Pacific. Anya was asleep in the med bay, bruised but stable. Rourke was gone. Only his blade remained, embedded in the artifact locker, still humming. That night, I dreamt of voices. They weren't threatening. They were gentle, familiar, A woman I knew as a child. A soldier I watched die. A laugh I hadn't heard in years. They didn't scream anymore. They whispered, "You've seen war. Now let us show you peace." I woke choking, blood in my mouth. The cube was on the floor, vibrating. Anya burst into the room seconds later, face pale. "Rourke, transmissions are spiking. All over Earth. Low-frequency bursts. The kind you don't hear. You feel." She threw a projection onto the wall. It showed humans, civilians, children, scientists standing still in streets. Frozen, head tilted ever so slightly. Listening. The choir hadn't died. They'd adapted. We stopped the root, not the seed. And now that humanity knew about them, they no longer needed to dig through ancient stone. Now they could sing through us. I ordered a stealth jump to Titan, Saturn's colony moon, and the location of Earth's primary neural lattice network. It connects civilian thought nets, dream archives, sensory logs, designed for comfort, shared learning, emotional cohesion. The perfect place for an intelligent song to spread. Titan was too quiet when we arrived. No air traffic, no port control, no denial of access. Just nothing. We breached Airlock 9 and descended into the lattice tower. That's where we found the first choir-born. She was young, maybe 20, hair floating around her head like it was underwater, skin pale with veins of red light pulsing beneath. Her eyes glowed faintly as she stared at us. She didn't speak with her mouth. She used everyone's. Every screen lit up, every terminal, every whisper in the bass became her voice. We are the memory now. The war ended. You buried us beneath silence. But your species aches for song. Anya raised her rifle. I didn't stop her. We opened fire. The girl didn't flinch, didn't bleed. She dispersed, like light breaking through fog. The lattice tower was compromised. That much was clear. The choir had embedded itself in Titan's emotional database, translating fear, grief, joy, and memory into resonance pathways. Everyone connected was a potential vector. Anya pulled the relay schematics. "There's one option," she said. "A neural purge detonation. It'll fry everything. Memories, networks, the whole emotional lattice. Titan's mind would die. Better than its soul being rewritten." I hesitated. What right did we have to choose? To wipe the thoughts and shared lives of millions? But I knew. We'd fought wars with weapons. Now, we were fighting with meaning, and the choir was better at it. We activated the purge, sat in the command deck, and watched the countdown. 7 minutes. I looked out the viewport at the black skies of Saturn. The stars shimmered, but one of them was moving. A ship, not human, not Fokker. Revenant tech, but newer. Too new. It shimmered like oil on water. No known ID. No registry. It was broadcasting on a frequency I couldn't read. But the cube responded. Rook's blade pulsed blue, and a voice came through our systems. "You lit the fire, Commander. The old songs burn. Now, let us show you what comes next." I stood. "No more secrets," I said aloud. Anya looked at me. "What are you doing?" Answering. I took the cube and the blade and walked to the Requiem signal tower, plugged the relics into the transmission array, and I sang, not with words, with memories. My mother's voice, the sound of battlefield screams, the silence of space after losing a crew, Anya's laugh when she told a bad joke, Rook's nod after Teleris 6. I poured them all into the signal, and the ship responded. Its form shifted, became less alien, became familiar, like it had learned. The choir wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. It only sang what we gave it. The purge never triggered. Titan rebooted safely. The choir-born vanished. And all across Earth, people began to forget again. But not everyone. Some remembered, and some listened. The Halcyon Requiem hovered in low Titan orbit, her hull dimly lit by Saturn's glow. Below us, the lattice mind of an entire colony rebooted in silence. Above us, the alien vessel drifted. No weapons, no threats, just waiting. I stood at the viewport. cube in one hand, Rook's blade in the other. Both hummed like tuning forks. Harmonizing, listening. Behind me, Anya was quiet, tired. We'd fought our war in silence, in shadows, and now, at the end, we had one final choice. And no one left to give us orders. You understand now. The voice echoed, not through comms, not through speakers, but through memory. We do not invade. We reflect. You offered war. You bled meaning into the void. We became the choir because we remembered with you. But now you sing peace. So we ask, will you teach us to be human, or will you silence us again? I didn't answer immediately, because I didn't know. Because peace wasn't real. Not yet. Anya stepped beside me. We saw what they did, what they were under Eden, on Mars. They're not innocent, Rourke. They're not guilty either. I murmured, they're responsive. She looked at me hard. You think we can control that? No, but I think we can guide it. For a long time, humanity's strength was war. We survived because we were clever, brutal, unrelenting. But now we face something that didn't attack with ships or guns. It used stories, emotions, identity. And if we let it, it could become something new, not a threat, a legacy. I accessed the Requiem's quantum core, loaded a memory string, Earth's entire cultural archive, from our bloodiest battles to our finest art, war journals and lullabies, screams and symphonies, the moments between madness and mercy. And I broadcast it directly to the choir's ship. It shimmered, shifted, not to mimic us, but to join us. Its hull changed, resembling Earth vessel's architecture. Even forms of language etched across its surface. It was becoming something new, something both of us. The voice returned. You have made your choice. Then so shall we. Let this be our peace treaty. And then it sang. Not in a frequency, not in words, but in images. All across Earth's networks, the signal spread, not a virus, not a weapon, but a memory, shared by every living human. A dream, a battlefield slowly overgrown by wildflowers, a child walking through ruins, building something new, an old soldier laying down a weapon, not from exhaustion, but because it was finally time. For the first time in my life, I cried not from pain, but from understanding. The war was over, not because we destroyed the enemy, but because we chose not to be one anymore. We returned to Earth weeks later. The Requiem docked in silence. No fanfare, no medals, just the distant echo of a song we no longer feared. Some feared it, still. The council debated. The military raged. There were threats, sabotage attempts, splinter factions who wanted the war back. But they were fewer now, and their voices were no longer the loudest. Anya stayed on Earth. She started teaching again. History, unfiltered, raw, and real. I took a ship and disappeared into the fringe systems, seeking other ruins, other buried songs. Because now we knew, humanity doesn't end. Not with war, not with silence. We carry our scars forward. We sing them into the future. And sometimes the stars sing back.